Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Yeah, he didn't have his tie on. Hopefully he got some sleep because he hadn't had sleep in 25 hours. But he is back home. The summit has come and gone, which is hard to believe. But when he went over, he talked to Kim Jong-un and he showed him a video. There was an edited video of what North Korea could look like if you really did denuclearize your country.
That's right.
And we have a little bit of that video, I believe.
Yeah, here we just landed, a long trip, but everyone can now feel much safer than the day I took office. There is no longer a nuclear threat for North Korea. What you're just watching is some of the video that the president handed out in Korean as well as English during this 4-hour meeting when they were with the 4x4 meeting. They said, hey, Kim Jong-un and your delegation, look at what North Korea could become. And they did it by Destiny Productions, and it wanted to you want to visualize your impoverished nation, the Hermit Kingdom, doesn't have to do that anymore.
So essentially
just saying, come on over to our side. Whose idea was that? Let's go out to Kellyanne Conway. She joins us right now from Washington, D.C. Kellyanne, that video, it's now available. Some people love it. Some people think it's kind of crazy propaganda. Whose idea was it?
It came from our National Security Council, and you characterized it quite well there, that Kim Jong-un has a decision to make. He can either continue to be nuclear capable, or he can swiftly move towards complete, verifiable, irreversible denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula and really stop the economic self-isolation that has marked his country for so long, the suffering of the people. This is somebody, a 34-year-old man who has imbibed Western culture. People report that he is very aware of all the privileges that attend to Western civilization, and I'm sure that some people even in North Korea know that as well. But look, this president, his moxie on the world stage cannot be overstated. And unlike the one-sided Iran deals, Cuba deals, where we gave up everything and got nothing in return, quite embarrassingly, this president has made clear that he is the one looking for Kim Jong-un to denuclearize and to stabilize. And this president also engaged allies in the region, Mr. Abe, Mr. Moon. He also has forged a great relationship with Mr. Xi on a number of big issues. And so he's been bringing along the leaders in that region the entire time. Mr. Abe was here last week, for example. But I think you cannot underestimate what it means to have a leader who makes good on the commitment to keep everybody more safe. Don't give too much attention to the angry people. Don't give too much credit to the critics, frankly. Almost who cares? They're skeptical, they're cynical. Last year I sat two seats away from the president in Bedminster when he said fire and fury, and everybody exploded. He's going to bring us into, now he's de-escalating and denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula, and they're still not happy. But the country sees it. The country sees the president's social media platform. They saw his leadership unfiltered,
Kellyanne,
authentically on the world stage.
What did Mr. Kim say when he looked at that video? Because I know later the president took him out and showed him his ride. Hey, look at my Cadillac here.
Well, I've spoken to the president this morning, but I haven't spoken to Chairman Kim. What did he say? Yes. But again, this president reads people. like no one I've ever seen. And he's a master deal maker, a negotiator. That's all very important because so many people are trying to fit into an old, stale framework what just happened. Folks, you got to throw out the playbook. For 3 years now, it's almost 3 years to the day that President Trump announced his candidacy for president, he has been just really turning the tables over and trying things in a different way. He was sent here to Washington to do exactly that, and now he's taken that all across the world. And those, look, I think that a denuclearized Korean Peninsula, no doubt, is a benefit to everyone. This is a global issue. This is not an American issue. It certainly isn't just about North Korea and South Korea. This benefits everyone. Look what's happening with Iran. This president hates those deals. He said we gave up so much and got so little. We shoveled over pallets of cash. So when this president's on the world stage for everybody to see unfiltered, when he holds forth with the media for an hour and 5 minutes, he gives at least 4 different interviews. The bilateral is covered by thousands of credentialed press. This is the president that I think we should all see more of. The more we see of President Trump, the more we hear from him, the better.
It is Thursday, the 14th of June of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. No Old Bay in any recipe here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, okay? Nope, we're nouveau. We don't do Old Bay here. Well, Old Bay is appropriate for maybe a clam bake. But you got to have sand in there, too. That's part of the ingredients, don't you know? Otherwise, why would they call it Old Bay? Well, Kellyanne Conway is quite the evil witch now, isn't she? Oh, Maggie Halberman said we shouldn't, respond with name-calling. Don't respond to name-calling with name-calling because it just reduces us to their level. And Maggie, Kellyanne Conway is an evil witch. Donnie Two Scoops is a traitor. And his deplorables are turning into brown shirts. Thanks for playing. Well, Maggie, everybody from Kellyanne Conway, she's so evil. God, who cares if it's propaganda? Well, I retweeted the North Korean news service photo of Trump saluting the North Korean general. What president of the United States would ever do that? One who's probably in the employ of Vladimir Putin. That's who I think. And but it could just be a doctored photo. And it could just be propaganda put out by the North Korea, quote, news service, end quote. I think it's the Korean News Service Association, so it would be the KNSA. How do you like them apples? So that could just be propaganda, but as Kellyanne Conway says, who cares? Don Jr. says that his dad's created a cult and he couldn't be more happier. Of course, Jim Jones created a cult. Some congressional oversight was put upon him, and the next thing you know, people were dead. And Jackie Spear crawled through the jungle for days until she was shot and made it to safety. And now Donnie Two Scoops is getting a little upset about the oversight, not just from Congress, but from our enemy, the news media in America. That's who the enemy is, not the North Korean general he is seemingly saluting. But that's tinfoil hat stuff. That's just liberal outrage, isn't it? Huh? I was taken to task for on Facebook for posting a picture of an asylum, a kid from an asylum seeker, and he's in a little cage, and he's crying. And then I juxtapose that with the Nazis, arresting little kids, and their moms in Warsaw at gunpoint, little kids with their hands up. And the first thing that was said by the more right-wing members of my Facebook tree was, is that a picture from the Obama era? Because some news site, and I think it was Russian-backed, purporting to be liberal, maybe, put out a picture from the Obama era of mothers and their little kids. But mothers and their little kids were not separated at the border by Obama. Obama wasn't the best on immigration. We all know that. We all complained about it in real time. So, yeah, I know about those other photos that purportedly were supposed to be from the Trump era, and it turned out to be from Obama. I'm not giving Obama a pass on this. I said that we are Nazis for letting this happen. I'm a Nazi. You were a Nazi. We are all Nazis for allowing this to happen. Now, I know that, I'm not really a Nazi, and you are not really a Nazi. But we own this regardless. We own it. So, that made me just a tad angry. But maybe I've been muted by that group in my Facebook tree. That's fine. As I said, silence is advocacy. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, what's on the rest of the menu? Boy, have we got a show curated for you today. Things that pretty much slip through. That's why we're West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. We do everything here. Because we're on the West Coast. We have to. You'll see. On the rest of the menu, here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. Ajit Pai's FCC plans a rule change just before the courts can upend the Sinclair bid for Time Warner. Comcast put theirs in too. But Ajit wants Sinclair Broadcasting because they're the true propaganda outlet. Comcast might have a little bit too much independence. Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III made a legal argument so stupid that even turtle Mitch McConnell won't embrace it. Yes, not even Mitch McConnell. And in an unusual move, the EPA has started referring reporters to Scott Pruitt's outside legal counsel when inquiring about his numerous scandals. Uh-oh. I think he's going to have to be spending more time with the zone of silence, or the cone of silence, at home with the family. Too bad. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where U.S. Catholic bishops rebuke Trump's child separation policy by suggesting canonical penalties that range from denial of the sacraments, no communion for you, to excommunication, you are banished from the tribe. Good. I think they should be. And scientists are still decoding the mysterious knotted strings the Incas used to record complex information. Yeah. You think it's just abacus with strings. No, it's even more than that. And all that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you'll notice to the rightish of the page, the chat room link, which is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, our roaring girl, and sometimes she's in there even at real time, and there's often people there anyway. So that's a good way to engage, and please do. Another way to engage, and a very important part, is to the leftish of the chat room link, and that is where the donate, contribute buttons are, and integral part of the operation, because we are unable to do this without you, and sincerely thank you for your generosity. You can follow Netroots Radio on Twitter at Netroots Radio. Fancy that. Tom takes care of that mostly and quite deftly, and you'll have fun. You can also follow Netroots Radio on Facebook, because Facebook is there, and I don't know, maybe we'll get to Snapchat one day. What else? Oh, follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam, and also show notes and links are posted on Daily Kos in my diary there, and I'm on Daily Kos as Justice Putnam. And go there, because that's also an integral part of this show. We are multimedia. Yeah, we got like the overhead projector, we got the 8-track cassette playing some background music and stuff. Hey, we do that. What else? I guess that's, of course, podcasts of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy can be had by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIns, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. All right. First article here as an offering in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is by Todd Shields out of Bloomberg. Yes, the FCC's chairman is said to be planning a vote next month. That's the Federal Communications Commission's chairman. A vote next month on limits to how many TV stations a company can own. Rules, he said, are too restrictive, and it could factor into Sinclair Broadcast Group's planned purchase of Tribune Media Company. They need the equity, apparently. FCC Chairman Ajit Pai is poised to schedule a July 12 vote on altering rules that cap broadcasters' reach at 39% of the national audience. And, of course, these were anonymous sources by people who were briefed on the plan, but the proposal hasn't been made public. And, I guess they would risk federal prison for disclosing state secrets. Like how the National Broadcast Propaganda Company might be undermined by the free market. So the only way to do that is, pull a beer hall putsch and change the rules. Jeez. Okay. I suppose if I was on the Lord of the Flies Island, and I was Ralph and not Jack, I might take Piggy and myself and, I don't know, maybe a couple of the smaller kids, and we'd go help the jet pilot who was really hurt at the top of the rock outcropping at the top of the island. But that's just me. All right. I don't know what that has to do with this, but I'm just saying it's Lord of the Flies here, and the choir boys have taken over. Jesus. Proposals from Pai, an appointee of President Donald Trump. We don't say the P word, but apparently Bloomberg does. Are all but certain to pass with votes from the Republican majority he leads. Now, a vote next month could head off a decision by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit in Washington that is considering a challenge to part of the existing rules. The case threatens to push Sinclair over the existing national ownership cap if it buys Tribune. They don't need the equity. They just need the coverage. Sinclair told the FCC its proposal to buy Tribune's 42 stations and sell others would leave it reaching almost 59% of the national audience. Nice. That share shrinks to less than 38% when counting just half the audience for some stations. As the FCC now allows, using a counting methodology that is under court challenge, Sinclair said in a filing. The acquisition would leave Sinclair with more than 200 stations and give the Maryland-based broadcaster, known for his conservative views, a national presence. With stations in major cities such as New York and Los Angeles, we get to have Boris Epstein in the LA market. Yikes. Well, on the other hand, they had George Putnam for, decades. Decades! I don't think good old George yeah, we were distantly related. And yeah, I appropriated his in this reporter's opinion because he's dead. And I'm just paying homage to the dead by using it in this reporter's opinion. That I don't think old George was really a Russian dupe. Now, in retrospect, he could be now. If the FCC abandons the special counting technique that discounts the audience of former UHF stations, I'm so old I remember UHF, and chooses a new limit under 59%, Sinclair could be forced to sell more stations than it currently proposes. Gigi Sohn, a former Democratic FCC official and critic of the deal, said in an interview, "Any limit above 39% would draw itself a court challenge," Sohn said. "That's going to be appealed right away. Whether the FCC may let companies count just half the audience is under challenge before the Court of Appeals, where judges who question the technique during an April hearing are expected to issue a decision during July or August. A decision disallowing the technique would leave a combined Sinclair Tribune above the limit." Yeah. Oh, it's sort of like, it's not 3/5, it's half. Only half. Give me an effing break. Everybody loves metrics, and you want those metrics so that you can get advertising dollars. But in this instance, propaganda only needs to count half if you can stay under the rules to prevent you from having a propaganda outlet. Now, these rules are so onerous that they have to be changed. Yeah, fairness this. Ian Millhiser from Think Progress penned this next offering here for the Bistro Cafe, Pardo, West Coast, Cookbook, and Speakeasy. I've often wondered, this chicken and egg argument, especially with Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III. Which came first? This chicken and egg thing. Which came first? Does the stupidity make you a racist or, succumb to racism, or does your racism just make you stupid? Because we need to remind ourselves, Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III was denied, a spot on the Supreme Court, not only for his racism, but because he's stupid. All right? And this case to dismantle Obamacare is another triumph of the stupid. So a lawyer, Joel McElvain, was one of the 3 career lawyers who withdrew from their case rather than signing their name to the Trump administration's arguments because they're so stupid. A highly unusual move by career Justice Department officials. Lawyers on the case said, we're out of here. This is exactly the opposite of what, all sense and reason would dictate. Okay. Then on Tuesday of this week, the top Republican on the Senate committee overseeing health care also dumped cold water on the Trump administration's effort to undercut Obamacare through litigation. Senator Lamar Alexander of Tennessee said the Justice Department argument in the Texas case is as far-fetched as any I've ever seen. And he's not wrong. Indeed, on this occasion, even Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell appeared unamused by the Trump administration's antics. The crux of the Trump DOJ's arguments in this matter is that various provisions of the Affordable Care Act that currently protect people with pre-existing conditions must be repealed by a federal court. McConnell spoke out against this, claiming with no small amount of confidence that no one in the Senate supported this agenda. Everybody I know in the Senate, everybody, is in favor of maintaining coverage for pre-existing conditions, said McConnell. This is, of course, a lie, because not everybody is. Set aside for a moment the fact that McConnell's statement is untrue and that most Senate Republicans supported legislation as recently as last fall that would have allowed insurance companies to charge so much to some people with pre-existing conditions that these individuals would no longer be able to afford insurance and then they would just die. I suppose, in this reporter's opinion. The fact that McConnell feels the need to distance himself from the Trump administration's legal arguments is highly significant, as is Alexander's stronger statement against the lawsuit. So, now, Chief Justice Roberts, this could land in his lap in a couple of years. And in the intervening time, it's going to be quite murderous for those of us who, really would like to see the Affordable Care Act be improved upon, not destroyed. Roberts has already said that he is sick and tired of politically motivated, frivolous lawsuits brought to his court. And this is certainly one. And but let's not forget, Trump could completely change the face of the Supreme Court itself. Okay, finishing up here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is another article out of Think Progress, this time by Kyla Mandel. And Scott Pruitt, in what some legal experts are viewing as an unusual move, his EPA has started referring reporters to his outside legal counsel when inquiring about his numerous scandals. Recent revelations have raised questions about whether Pruitt broke federal law by using public office for personal gain. Well, that's how he got the job. Dismantle it and keep the spoils. Okay, so let's see. On Friday, CNN and E&E News were both referred by the EPA to Pruitt's outside counsel regarding news that House Democrats are calling on the Department of Justice to open up a criminal probe into the administrator over accusations of corruption. Then on Wednesday, that was yesterday, after the Washington Post revealed that Pruitt asked an EPA aide and a top Republican donor to help his wife find a job. He wanted a Chick-fil-A. Franchise. Yeah, put me through on the fast track for that. And Chick-fil-A, who, I got to tell you, they have like a morality clause with their franchisees. Consider this guy, I don't know, he and his wife don't really seem up to snuff for the morality that we demand. My God. And so, yeah, they were said, go to outside counsel for that. And then the most recent series of scandals involving Pruitt include reports that he asked top aides to help with personal tasks, such as house hunting, purchasing a used mattress from Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C., finding moisturizer from the Ritz-Carlton. Well, come on, he's the boss. Do you think he's going to stop at having them make coffee? According to federal rules, public officials cannot use their office for private gain. And federal employees are prohibited from making a donation or a gift to an official superior. Oh, well, that's not a gift. That's called tribute. It's different. And Pruitt is facing over a dozen investigations into his spending and management decisions, including expensive first-class travel and a sweetheart condo deal linked to an energy lobbyist. Well, of course. Now, recently, I'm sorry, I'm just scrolling down here. If you're Pruitt, you may have to worry you don't have loyal people. And the reason that that statement is made is because the reason that Scott Pruitt has even utilized outside counsel is because of his paranoia. If someone within the department knows something, a FOIA request is not as powerful as a subpoena from the DOJ. He doesn't trust his own people to keep their mouths shut. And once he has outside counsel, it's attorney-client privilege. All right, let's get to our break, and then we'll come back and go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Karen Hopkin. Need a quick breath check before your big meeting or your big date? Well, scientists from South Korea may be able to help. They've engineered a portable device that detects even the tiniest trace of hydrogen sulfide, the stuff that smells like rotten eggs and is one of the primary offenders in oral obnoxiousness. Their work appears in the journal Analytical Chemistry. Bad breath, aka halitosis, can be more than a social inconvenience. A skunky mouth also may point to some serious underlying medical or dental issues.
Early diagnosis is very significant to prolong your healthy life.
Juni Cha of the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology. He says that most of the instruments used for diagnostics are found in clinics or hospitals, which may be tough to get to. And the electronic sensors that are currently used to sniff out various gases require a power source and precise calibration. Not easy when you're out and about.
So, we came up with a strategy to develop colorimetric gas sensors, which changes color when detecting biomarker gases.
Think of it as a litmus test for your exhalation. To build their sensor, the researchers took lead acetate, a chemical used in some hair dye products that turns brown when exposed to hydrogen sulfide. And they embedded it in a 3-dimensional nanofiber web, so the dye would spread out across a large surface area. That distribution gives the sensor the sensitivity it needs to detect trace amounts of H2S. To test the device, the researchers puffed it with different concentrations of hydrogen sulfide gas. And they found that as little as 400 parts per billion of H2S produced a color change that could be seen by the naked eye, which is about a fifth as much H2S as you'd need to have stank breath. They even used the device with real human outgassing. The researchers had volunteers blow into a bag, and they spiked these exhalates with 1,000 parts per billion H2S. Again, the bad breathalyzer worked like a charm.
This sensor showed high potential for simple halitosis diagnosis with your breath, anytime, anywhere, in a very short time.
The team is now working on similar diagnostic sensors for other vaporous effluvium. It may not sound pretty, but hey, it's a gas. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Karen Hopkin.
This is 60-Second Civics from the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. In the 1960s and 1970s, the government drafted thousands of young men to fight in the Vietnam War. Many of these young men were too young to vote. They did not have a voice in the elections for government officials responsible for deciding America's role in that war. The voting requirement at that time was 21 years of age. Congress passed a law in 1970 lowering the voting age to 18. The U.S. Supreme Court then ruled that Congress could only regulate federal elections. At that time, only 4 states allowed 18-year-olds to vote. Following the court's decision, steps were taken to amend the Constitution so that suffrage would be extended to 18-year-olds in both state and federal elections. In 1971, the 26th Amendment was added to the Constitution. The amendment grants the right to vote to any citizen who is 18 years of age or older. That's all for today's podcast, 60 Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1915. That was the day British socialist illustrator Walter Crane died. You have probably seen his Art Nouveau-style illustrations. Many celebrate International May Day, memorialize the Haymarket Martyrs of Chicago, or commemorate the Paris Commune. He also published a series of illustrations titled Cartoons for the Cause. That series was produced to commemorate the International Socialist Trade Union Congress of 1896. Born in 1845, Crane apprenticed with the Chartist radical William James Linton. He started his career illustrating children's books, nursery rhymes, and fairy tales. He later traveled to Italy with his wife Mary to continue with book illustrations and portraiture. Upon his return to Britain, he became friends with artist William Morris, whose pamphlet, Art and Socialism, deeply impacted him. Crane soon joined the Art Workers Guild and the Arts and Crafts Society. Together, he and Morris joined the Social Democratic Federation. Crane produced illustrations for its journal, Justice. From there, he helped to found the Socialist League and illustrated its journal, The Commonwealth. When the League failed to gain popularity, he moved on to the Fabian Society, whose members included George Bernard Shaw, H.G. Wells, and Sidney and Beatrice Webb. Crane produced wildly popular images like the Angel of Freedom and published The Claims of Decorative Art. In it, he asserted art could not flourish in a world where wealth was so unfairly distributed. Only under socialism could use and beauty be united. He continued to publish and became principal of the Royal College of Arts in 1898. A strong critic of the British Empire, Crane supported the Labour Party and produced posters each year to celebrate May Day. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
This is Solidarity News on Radio Labour.
This is a Radio Labour report recorded on Thursday, June 14th, 2018. I'm Mark Belanger.
What are we trying to do here? What is it that we're trying to do as a global union and a global movement? We're trying to put work back in the centre of the conversation.
There are only 3 million people in Wales, but that tiny country has produced a disproportionate number of great labour leaders. One of those leaders, Philip Jennings, is stepping down as General Secretary of Uni Global Union this month. Uni is the global union for skills and services with 20 million members in a wide range of sectors, including finance, IT, media, hair and beauty, tourism, and garment production. Mr. Jennings is the founding General Secretary of Uni. In a recent address at the Labor Relations School of Cornell University in the United States, he looked back on his career in the labor movement and ahead to the future he sees for working people.
I lived in a terraced house. We slept 5 in a room, myself and my 3 sisters. My mother was an orphan, my father was a factory worker. We had an outside toilet, no hot water, a real industrial family just trying to make it. Okay, you can call it big red socialist thinking if you like. But this sense of opportunity and caring for others and community helped me. We went from 5 in a room to public housing, where we had a bathroom on the inside with hot water and a garden we could grow vegetables. I went to a free school. We had free public health. I had free education, free health. We paid pennies for the house that we lived in. And I went to university. I was the first kid in my school, in my street, to go to university. And I went for free. I couldn't ask my father for money. He only earned £5 a week. It used to be slapped on the mantelpiece every Friday afternoon or Friday night when he came back from work. And I went to the LSE, this place of great learning. And I went there with a scholarship. I started trade union work in the UK in 1970, 76. I remember in a car, when Margaret Thatcher became the leader of the Tory party, we stopped the car. We danced in the street. We said, we're going to have a Labour government forever with this woman. Like many people said, Brexit won't happen and Donald Trump will never be the president. How wrong we were. And then we begin to look at the seeds that were sown at that time. And then when Margaret Thatcher said, there is no society, can you imagine? There is no society. What does that mean? You have no neighbour? You have no community? What does that mean? And that is the kind of thinking that I've had to live with all of my union life. Because right in the front line of there is no society, it also means they declare a kind of war on those organisations that see things differently. And then you fast forward today, you see racism, xenophobia, nationalism, demonisation, division, attacks on minorities and race and women, attacks on people, their sexual orientation. It's a kind of echo of that moment. There is no society. And hence, when I talk about the future of work, justice and peace, that takes me to the future of work. We have to look at the nature of the changes which face us in terms of job quantity, job quality, and above all, transformation. This digital revolution is transformational, and my message is we are not prepared for this degree of transformation, and we are not prepared to accompany people. We're accused of being protectionist and all the rest of it. So I like the word, how are we going to accompany people through this revolution? In terms of their income, in terms of their job, in terms of their retraining, in terms of their requalification, and how you turn education into a lifetime experience.
And that's it. International labor news you can use. You can find more labor news on our website at www.radiolabor.net. Follow us on Twitter at Radio Labor. I'm Mark Boulanger. Thank you for listening. And remember, it's all about global solidarity.
From Singapore, I'm Luke Vargas with your World in 2 minutes. For a matter of hours on Wednesday, there was hope that one of Europe's longest-running diplomatic disputes had been resolved. The dispute is known as the Macedonian naming issue, and it centers around the Republic of Macedonia, a nation of around 2 million people that rests just north of Greece. Except Greece has beef with Macedonia's name, saying it implies ownership of the Greek state of Macedonia and historical ties with Macedon, the ancient Greek kingdom once helmed by Alexander the Great. In 1995, the two countries agreed to a UN deal mandating that as formal talks continued to resolve the dispute, Macedonia would be known at the United Nations as the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, or FYROM. After years of on-again, off-again talks, it was announced on Tuesday that Macedonia would change its name to the Republic of Northern Macedonia, under the terms of a deal worked out by Macedonia's prime minister that would likely pave the way for the country to eventually join the European Union and NATO. But hold off on the confetti. In a Wednesday news conference, Macedonian Prime Minister George Ivanov said the deal was unacceptable and damaging, and he vowed to veto it should it win the backing of Parliament. It just so happens Ivanov is backed by hardline nationalists who refuse to concede on the naming issue at all. And just because Macedonia's leader doesn't like the deal, don't assume Greece does either. The country's leading opposition party has already lodged a no-confidence vote targeting Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras, accusing him of negotiating away Greece's heritage by allowing the Republic of Northern Macedonia to use the name Macedonia even in that context. Nobody thought resolving the name dispute would be easy, but sometimes it takes a glimmer of a truce to end a conflict to see just how much both sides still want to keep fighting. Luke Vargas, Singapore.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. No Old Bay, folks, okay? Keep it for the clam bake. But, this other stuff, that's not. Okay, well, let's begin with weather from around the world. And we always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently, 58 degrees. And we're going to be a tad cooler than yesterday. We'll only go to 77, 78, maybe 80. But that is cooler than what it was yesterday, where it was upper 80s, low 90s, at least here at the mothership at positively 3rd and Marie. So we'll have a low tonight of around 50, which is, in my book, keep the windows open. I like it. And then we'll be a tad cooler tomorrow. They're slating us to be really only going to be about 74 to, 77 probably where I'm at. Yes, so let's see. Dry conditions will continue, though tonight we are seeing the 10% tick of possibility. And though I don't see anything in the satellite photos, but we're getting a little bit of possibility, and I like that. Pressure is holding right now at 29.95 inches. Oh, we will be partly cloudy, by the way, which is good. Anyway, so visibility, though, is up to 9 miles. Cloud cover is quite high, and that's about 3,400 feet. And relative humidity is 71%, so that does seem a bit dry. Anyway, okay, so weather. Oh, I forgot to mention that pollen is very high, and the daytime UV index is at 9, which remains very high. Take care with that number. All right, weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Okay, London is 72 and partly cloudy. Paris is 69 and mostly cloudy. Rome is 68 with rain and a weather advisory for heavy rain and flooding. Crazy. Kiev is 81 and fair. Kabul is 80 and fair. Take care if you're having a wedding. Forecast for heavy falling bombs. Hong Kong is 76 and mostly cloudy. Tokyo is 68 and cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 54 degrees and clear. San Francisco, California is 52 degrees and partly cloudy with a small craft advisory. It continues there. And a small craft advisory in New York as well. Take care there, but you're 75 degrees and sunny with a little bit of the cleansing wind. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere in their property, and these people positively live around the world. All right, before we start with this first offering here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays, we've had a roof tear off in the neighborhood that I thought maybe wouldn't bleed through too much from the open window that I like to have in my studio, the higher window. There's another big slider right near where the microphone is set up that I tend to close off because it might bleed the loud trucks that people tend to own here and they want to drive by. And I think they need to have glass pack mufflers in their big trucks also to rile up the neighborhood on their way out to wherever they're going. And anyway, we do have the city street sweeper going by, and that is quite loud even with My soundproof window's closed. Isn't that something? But at least it's nice to have a street sweeper come through. It keeps debris out of the storm drains in case we have rains. And that's always a good thing. And it makes the place nice and tidy. Indeed. Okay, this first offering here is from the Religious News Service, and a worker bee there, a nameless worker bee. All right. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops opened its spring meeting this week with a sterner approach of the Trump administration's latest immigration policies, with the group's presidents suggesting the new rules on asylum are a right-to-life issue. Some bishops followed by urging protests, including canonical penalties for those who carry out the administration's new rules. Maybe they should be denied the Eucharist. Maybe they should be denied confirmation. Maybe they should, in some instances, actually be excommunicated from the church for violating, well, God's law. At its core, asylum is an instrument to preserve the right to life, said Bishop DiNardo, reading from the statement. The Attorney General's recent decision elicits deep concern because it potentially strips asylum from many women who lack adequate protection. The decision negates decades of precedents that have provided protection to women fleeing domestic violence, DiNardo continued. We urge courts and policymakers to respect and enhance, not erode, the potential of our asylum system to preserve and protect the right to life. And I'm sorry, that was Cardinal DiNardo, by the way. So on Monday, Sessions reversed an immigration appeals court decision granting asylum to a Salvadoran woman who had claimed domestic abuse in her home country. His ruling effectively overturned an Obama administration practice of allowing women with credible claims of domestic abuse or those fleeing gang violence, MS-13, to seek asylum in the U.S. Cardinal DiNardo also criticized the Trump administration's zero policy announced in May, which calls for prosecuting all those who cross the border illegally and separating children immigrating with parents from their families. I think Cardinal DiNardo doesn't understand how they are crossing illegally is by fiat. These families are coming here seeking asylum, not entering the the country illegally. They are going through the channels. They cross, they go to a border patrol area, they turn themselves in and request asylum. They are following the law. And by fiat, just by dint of the fact you're coming to our country asking for our help, what kind of monster are you? This is what we are doing. We're Nazis. And apparently we're the devil's spawn, too. Separating babies from their mothers is not the answer and is immoral, Cardinal DiNardo added. When he finished, DiNardo asked bishops to clap if they approved the statement. The room erupted in a standing ovation.
Dansez maintenant sous l'été, les pieds nus dans le sable. Dansez maintenant et jetez vos ennuis dans les vagues qui dansent.
Manuel Medrano and Gary Urton from Eon Magazine give us this last offering here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. The Inca Empire that was from 1400 to 1532 of the Common Era, is one of the few ancient civilizations that speaks to us in multiple dimensions. Instead of words or pictograms, the Incas used quipus, which are knotted string devices to communicate extraordinarily complex mathematical and narrative information. But after more than a century of study, we remain unable to fully crack the code of the quipus. The challenge rests not in a lack of artifacts. Over 1,000 quipus are known to us today, but in their variety and complexity. We confront tens of thousands of knots tied by different people for different purposes and in different regions of the empire. Cracking the code amounts to finding a pattern in history's knotted haystack. Oh, a little bit of the poet there. Okay. Using locally available materials such as camelid fleece and cotton, the quipus encoded administrative data such as census figures and tax allocation in the twisted strings of these ancient spreadsheets. The Inca bureaucrats used these data to keep tabs on the largest empire in the pre-Columbian Americas. We have known for about a century that the accounting quipus follow a base 10-knot scheme. Now imagine an abacus, except made out of string. However, these quantitative quipus account for only about 2/3 of the samples remaining today. The remaining third of these devices, the so-called narrative quipus, appear to contain encoded, non-numerical narrative information, including names, stories, and even ancient philosophies. For those who love puzzles, the narrative quipus are a godsend. What is so radical about wrapping numbers in knots? Consider how we typically learn to count. In school, counting begins with objects, wooden blocks, Lego pieces, or other toys. Addition and subtraction involve making piles of these objects or tallying with our fingers. Then fingers and blocks turn into two-dimensional formulas, as students are taught a series of mathematical figures commonly called ciphers. As a result, we can lose our ability to appreciate numbers as being represented by anything other than these abstract written symbols. Think about it. Is there anything about the symbol 7 that communicates the meaning of 7? By contrast, the Inca quipu code for 7 was a special type of knot, made by wrapping the string around itself to make a series of loops, 7 to be exact. Then there are the narrative quipus. These might have used numbers as qualitative identifiers for people or ideas. Consider how we are each identified by a phone number, a social security number, or a street address. This raises an important question. When numbers can signify quantities, identities, or some combination of both, how do we know what category of numbers we are looking for? In other words, might a knot that signals the number 3 reflect a count of 3 pesos, an identifier of a local villager, or perhaps an emerging postal code system? Some scholars have even suggested that the knots themselves encoded symbolic language. Now, the search for a narrative Rosetta quipu amounts to finding a match between the text of a Spanish document and the knots of twisted strings. Given these complexities, how confident can we be in our ability to learn about the narrative quipus? I mean, after all, the Incas used a 3D record, which is intimidating to us because, we rely so much on our technologies. But they were able to collapse and centralize mathematics, language, accounting, and history into a durable and portable recording device. These quipus are a perfect example of why it is dangerous to judge the past through the lens of the present. If ancient peoples were primitive, then we must be as well, because the Incas and the narrative quipus, after all, have managed to baffle us so far. Indeed. All right, let's get out of here because we're at the end of our broadcast period. But, of course, Netroots Radio broadcasts on for breaking news as it happens. We'll visit with you tomorrow for Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. And so stay tuned to Netroots Radio 24/7, 365, and we will visit with you tomorrow in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.